Hello everybody, my name is AUDU MAIKORI, CEO of Choc City, and you're watching Factory 78.
Factory 78 TV, I'm Adesope, your host. We've got a special guest in the UK today, CEO, co-founder, Choc City Music Group, Mr. AUDU MAIKORI. How you doing?
Kaude, it's a pleasure to be here.
Listen, it's a pleasure to have you here, and thank you very much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to speak to us.
And thank you so much for supporting everything we've done and being brothers in code for Choc City.
Absolutely. Let's start with Choc City Music Group. We've seen record labels in Africa, in Nigeria particularly, just rise and rise and rise. It started off with a couple of guys from Jos and yourselves. You put the brand together. Tell us a little bit about the beginning of that label itself.
Well, it was registered in 2003, but the origins really was back when I was in university, law undergrad. So it started as a rave, just I and a couple of friends. And then after law school, I was in practice in a law firm, litigation firm, Afe Babalola & Co. And I got my bonus, and I always knew I wanted to do my own thing because I knew I wouldn't be there forever. So what name again? Choc City. So used the name, and then registered in 2003. And 2005 we signed our first artist, Jeremiah Gang, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Absolutely. You said in 2003 it was registered. Choc City, for a lot of people, especially here in the UK, really came into its own when you had almost like a gang of brothers in terms of Iceprince, MI, Jesse, and Brymo. Where all of these artists, I know Jesse always said MI was the first man to really go into Choc City and go to Lagos. But what was the selection process like in picking these four guys? Or were they just the guys that were available at the time?
Well, I'd say that first of all, we don't take signing an artist lightly. We don't. So it's not a function of being part of the clique. That's easy. But I think it's a function of what they could deliver. I met MI through, well, two ways. I met him through something called GAP, Guild of Artists and Poets, something we started in 2001. Paul Okugo, my business partner, and I then. And he was part of the GAP chapter in Jos, the Jos chapter. So I knew him as a poet then, but as Judah Bagger, not as MI. But then Paul was telling me about this rapper who was in GAP, whose name was Mike Grep. And then Jeremiah Gang was telling me about his friend called MI. Do you understand? So it was the same guy, really. We'd known each other, but we didn't know that we knew each other, that kind of thing. So we've been listening, and for me, one thing that for me is a test for every artist that we sign is that they must be able to do something beyond what you've done, unless what you've done is really fantastic. So we're like, okay, well, you can rap, it's nice, but will Nigerians understand you? You need to break it down. You need to make it. You need to adapt it. Maybe that's the word. Relatable to our context. And he went in and wrote a song called Crowd Mentality. And I remember the day he came to my house with the demo and he played it. I said, now you have a record deal, because he proven that, okay, he listened to what we said and was ready to work towards it. Versatility is important in this business. And then, of course, being fluid, because if you're a bit too rigid, things change all the time. So that's how we signed MI. Jeremiah gave me his demo, and that's the first time I listened to music properly. So it came through Jeremiah, that connection. While that was going on, Jagz was in that conversation as well, but I wasn't sure I wanted to sign two brothers. I just didn't want that complication as well. Until one day I was in the office and Paul just came in from Johnson and says, "AUDU, you need to listen to this song, Jagz." And the song was called Bend Down Low. And when I listened to the song, I said, wow, we need to sign this boy. So that's how he also got signed. And thereafter, we had a sort of a relationship with the company, with the Loopy crew, And they said, okay, look, we want to do a deal. You guys will do a production deal. We'll get the artists. You guys promote them and blah blah blah. And that's how Iceprince came into it. But Iceprince as well was also waiting in the things up until I heard another song. He had been doing a lot of songs, but I heard something he did in the studio. It's called I'm So this, I'm So that. Blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm like, wow, okay. So we got working on him as well. So it's a process. Before that, I'd worked with people like Asha. I managed Asha. I worked with Genie.
Wow.
Then Brymo. In Brymo's case, I actually met. I heard his song Shorty some time before that. So I was like, who's this dude? I was trying to locate him. In fact, we shot a video with the same guy that shot that video because of that song. And then MI brought him one day, like, this dude. And you know, so it's that process. Others, Nusa. I found Nusa through Jeffrey Daniels, who was a Nigerian Idol co-host. And he said, I'll do this. This guy you need to listen to. Legendary. You know, and for Jeffrey to say, you need to listen to this, of course, you need to, because I listened to that like, wow, Jesus, you know. And then we got into that conversation. God, should I keep on going?
No, I think it's clear the process of, you know, signing the artist to Chocolate City, because the first thing that a lot of people like myself would think is there's this sort of like a rap mentality, a sort of, you know, oh, these guys are rappers, and obviously when you get into the Chocolate City Music Group, you find out that these guys are also musicians in the making. But even though I wouldn't like to jump into this quite quickly, but I think you led me to it by what you said, you know, in terms of, you said, MI, you know, when you told him to kind of make a song that was relatable to the African and Nigerian audience. Jagz, formerly of Chocolate City, can I say formerly?
Formerly, yeah.
Formerly of Chocolate City Music, he said, you know, his music was a little bit being infiltrated in terms of being influenced by people around him in the music studio and in the group. Was that part of like a Chocolate City kind of mentality, or was it just part of almost art A&R and you know, an artist?
The job of the label is basically to create music that can be sold. That's the truth about it. We're not a charity case, and and the truth is that the label business now has become more of a charity case, because you spend so much money and you really don't get anything out of it. But I wouldn't say that. I would say that one of the reasons why you find that we've achieved a level of success is that we've left a lot of creative control to the artists. It may be without regret, because we feel that they need to be free to express themselves and to do what they want to do. But at the same time, you also kind of need to make music that can also be sold. So you find that some of the best artists, the A&Ring process makes them better, because you need to also get out of yourself and look at the fact that you're servicing an industry as well. So I would say that, I mean, it's a question of opinion. In my opinion, I felt that you went and made music and you submitted it and we said, oh, we like this and we don't like this. As simple as that.
It's about working that out. Now, like you said, formerly of Chocolate City Music Group, nobody really, it was almost like, it was a breaking news situation. I was in the studio with DJ Lanre, and all of a sudden we got a phone call. Lynx was in the studio as well. Jagz, you know, has left the Chocolate City Music. Nobody said really anything apart from what he said, which was to move on and kind of like, you know, move his career further. Yeah. Can you shed a little bit more light on that? What happened?
Well, I think, you know, the original contract we had with him was for one album. He dropped that album. Thereafter, he was working on a lot of production stuff, and he took some time off, and he said, look, I want to do my own thing. When he decided that he wanted to do his own, start of his own thing, he had been with us 6 years. Now, let's be honest, his original contract was 3 years. If after 6 years somebody wakes up and says, look, I want to do my thing, I think that's a fair call. If you want to do so, I don't think there's a problem. But even with that, he's working on Jesse's album right now, MI's album now as well. He's doing some stuff with Ice. Victoria was on his album. She also. So for me, it's yeah. I mean, it's that's how business is sometimes. You get to a point where, but it's like Genie. Working with Genie at the point in time, we found that we couldn't work together again. He wanted to go another path, and we didn't want to go that path. But we still do a lot of stuff. Our guys featured on his song. So for me, it's part of the industry. I don't think there's a big issue with that. I don't think it's an issue at all.
No issue with that, but there might be an issue with the fact that Brymo pulled a press.
There is an issue.
Factory on the ATV live.
There is an issue.
He called a press conference and basically said, you know, he even made a statement saying the legal system in Nigeria couldn't help him out of this situation, but the press conference apparently could. What are your thoughts on the way he went about that? What would you say to that?
No, I mean, to be honest, I've deliberately said I wouldn't say anything about it, simply because it's a legal matter, and being a lawyer myself, I know that I wouldn't want to preempt what the matter says. But I think it's very simple. You have a contract. You need to abide to terms and conditions of that contract. Anybody can say what they want to say. Of course, it's a free world, but what you say has repercussions. So just be sure that whatever you said is in the public place. People will quote you on those things. So I'll say mostly it's ignorance. I think it's mostly ignorance. But I'm hoping that this process will educate him and many other people out there that the music business is serious business. People think it's about Twitter and Facebook and likes. It's not. And YouTube. So people go on and do what they want to do. But I mean, there are many cases in point where people have done those things and they've regretted it. And I just feel sad that somebody would mess his career up by himself. Mace did the same thing. 16 years, he couldn't get out of his contract. So I think it's a shame. But I think it's important to also teach people. They need to learn that it is business. And I always use the analogy that if I got a contract to build the Hilton, for example, and I felt angry or upset, or and I said, I'm not going to do it again, can I wake up and just leave? No. So I think that is what it is. And if you look at the industry generally, there are a lot of these stories, a lot of things happening in the industry. People are worried. I'm not, because I think that is part of the growth process. It's like when you hear Boko Haram and it's part of the growth process of democracy. You need to test out each other, and then it begins to form into industry. This same thing happened in America 20, 30 years ago. When they had issues with record, I mean, if you talk to people that were there, they'll tell you that they go for a contract signing with a gun and a contract and lawyers, because it was that serious. So it's just part of the growth process, and I'm excited about being at a stage whereby we're not just influencers, but we're also learning from one another about how the creative industry will continue to progress.
It's interesting that you say it's part of the growth process of an industry, because we had Kenny's music in their prime. It went away. Then we had a situation where Mo Hits came at the peak of their powers. We had a situation. Now Chocolate City started to dominate the scene. It seemed like at a peak.
We're going nowhere. We're not going anywhere.
Chocolate City is definitely going nowhere.
No, we're not going anywhere, because you see, our vision is different. We're not a movement. We're a company. Talent will come, talent will go. But the factory, like 78, will always be there churning out those things. And I don't even think it's an issue of, number one, number two. We intend to be consistent, and we've been consistent for 8 years. Because as we were talking, Chocolate City is the only record label that has a Kenyan office. We have an office in Abuja and Lagos. Nobody else has done that. So our focus is totally different. And people are worried about, these skirmishes coming up and down. It's part of the business. Look at every label in the world, from Bad Boy. Look at all of them. They've had those things. But what is important is that the structure is not diminished. Because once that structure, remember that structure is investing in this talent. If there's no confidence in that investment, then the industry will become more and more eroded. And that's why it's important now more than ever to educate people. And I'm hoping that Factory 78 will be one of those outlets to educate people about, look, at the end of the day, this is something that can be very lucrative for people. But we need to go through the process. We need to learn what obligations are. We need to understand how to.
What about the fact that of managing expectations? Because for some time, I think the artists as well. I'm not an artist. I've never been, but I also feel like the artists have some expectations that perhaps need to be managed. They expect when people get signed to record labels, they expect perhaps a couple of cash in their pockets, cars, this, that. But it also has to be in relation to the success of the albums, isn't it?
Well, I think it's different models for different things. Albums don't really bring money. That's the truth about it. Even the biggest selling albums, they don't really make money for you. Most of your money comes from live performances. One of the issues has been that because live performance is the main source of income, all that the focus is on that. we are working behind the scenes to set up distribution on digital platform. A lot is going on there, and I can't talk about it now, but soon you will hear about what we're trying to do with that. And that's because once there's no veritable source of getting a product, people will get it anyway. In terms of artist expectations, I don't think anybody can manage any artist expectations. It's for them to manage it for themselves, because it is not easy to be the subject of adulation from millions of people. And I totally understand the pressure when you walk in. I'm not a celebrity, but I've experienced what celebrity is. You walk into place, oh, are you out to people are changing, they want to take pictures of you and all that. And because I'm a businessman, I don't sing and I don't have any talent. I'm like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't mean anything to me. But for these guys, they walk in the morning, there are 20,000 people who are screaming their name. It's hard for you now not to begin to feel superhuman, because it's a superhuman feeling. Let's be honest about that. So I just think that as time, it's education. It's about education. And I try to advise most of the artists I work with that, look, you need to get a financial advisor. You need somebody to kind of tell you, because, yeah, you're making 10 million a gig now. What happens when it goes? Because it will go someday. So how do you manage that? If you fly business class and you drive Ferraris and you're not making hits in 10 years, will you still be able to afford a Ferrari? And what have you put aside for those rainy days? So I think it's, like I said, it's a process. People will have to make mistakes, and people have to learn from those mistakes to develop. And I just hope that we will learn from what other people are doing outside the world and see that the average black star and the average white star, they're not the same. The white guy knows what he's doing. He invests his money. You probably see him buying ragged jeans, t-shirts and all that. We're wearing $5,000 t-shirts and blah, blah, blah. And then tomorrow we can't afford anything. So I think they need to really learn that at the end of the day, it is show business. When the show is over, what happens to your business? That's the question.
I like that part. But now moving on to, a lighter note, Iceprince has picked up the BET Award for the Best African Act. First time we stepped on stage, he called all the other African brothers and sisters to share that moment with him. Iceprince has been the shining light in terms of Afro pop music, hip hop, whatever you want to call it, Afrobeat outside of Nigeria. Was it a plan from the beginning, or was Iceprince, did it just happen?
There's a verse in Jesse's album. He said, MI is the lightning. He said, I'm the thunder, and Iceprince is the rain. There's a prophecy. You know what lightning is? You see. And thunder is sound. And the rain is you see and you feel it at the same time. I think that it's about progression. Obviously, it's God's doing. I wouldn't even pretend about that. It's God's doing. But also, I think it's also the fact that in terms of the kind of music that he makes, there's a lot of pop appeal to it, probably more than the other people. So there's that pop thing. Secondly, some of these things are about timing. You just need this great break. But the question is that we've had people who have had fantastic songs, very big songs. And then the next thing is that after that big song, they stop being busy. I think he's very hungry for success. He's very eager to go and just keep churning out the stuff. And it's like seeing what Wizkid is doing or what Olamide is doing. These guys are they're in the studio all the time. They're working, they want to put out the music, and people are connecting with that. Now, how do you determine how successful they'll be? You never really know. But all you can do is put your best foot forward, and God rewards hard work. Sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's God, sometimes it's a combination of all those things. But having said that also, there has been a lot of work, no doubt, put into the process, into the band. And then again, I think there's also a relationship thing. We're talking earlier about relationships. I think that you make your own relationships, and that helps in no small way.
Absolutely. Finally, Choc City Music Group, the future. I know Victoria Kimani, an incredible vocalist, has joined the team. What is the future for Choc Music Group?
Well, it's actually Choc City Group. We have Choc City Music, which is a company. We have Choc City Media. We have Choc City Distribution. What we've done what we're planning with the music arm is that you will see that there are a lot of signings that are coming up as well. And we're also increasing our capacity to manage the talent, because the truth also is that with more talent, you need more hands and more resources, obviously. Past 3 months, we've been going through a restructure process internally as a company. because we intend to be and to remain Africa's biggest entertainment consortium. So what we're doing, for example, our Kenyan, which is an East African branch really, is we started with Victoria Kimani. She's doing quite well. We have some strategic collaborations she's going to be undertaking. She's working on a mixtape as I speak. I'm putting out a lot of music. There's a guy called Nusa. You probably heard "I Will Always Pray for You." You heard that? Yeah, but there's some new stuff coming from him. Some fresh stuff. Prize, of course, has a first single. The second single has been worked on now. Videos coming out very soon. There's a lot going on. There's quite a bit, and there's even, I cannot disclose the unsigned, yet to be signed people.
That's the legal head there.
And then
that's the legal moment.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's a Choc Boy Nation, which is really people like Loopy Music, which is MI's crew, you know, a Brother Bass, the Grip Boys. It's the whole movement. There are loads of people on there, and for us the movement is simple, just good music, and we're doing music that we're hoping will connect with the crowd. So there's a whole movement about putting out Nigeria's music, and you hear a lot of different genres. So it's not going to be just hip hop. You're going to hear some slow rock, all sorts of things, traditional music, and then of course my high life music that I'm a big fan of. So there's a lot going on. But beyond that, what we're working on for the media group is we're working on a full-length movie as well. We already started negotiations with that. Like I said, we love entertainment. We want to make people happy, and we hope that the band will continue to do so. Absolutely. And of course, we hope Factory 78 continues to support us.
Hey, listen, this is an official arm of Choc City. Yes. Iceprince, you know that. So thank you very much for spending this time with us. And
you know, some people call us Chocolate Factory. So maybe we should call it Chocolate Factory 78. You know,
made it official right here.
Official.
MI. When is this MI album coming now?
Well, Mr. Chairman, look, there are things going on. I can't even say them. You know what I'm saying? But I can assure you that we're not. MI's had a ridiculously busy year. To be honest, it's tough. He's currently the X Factor judge, and having done that on Nigerian Idol before, I know what it is. It's ridiculous. And when we're making a decision as to whether to go on with it, I said, look, man, it's exposure. But with that comes less time to do other things. Of course, he's also doing the Glow Ambassador thing, so a lot of things going on with that. The Chairman album is, I was in the studio the day before I came here. I was actually in the studio at like 2 a.m. with him, just listening to some of the stuff we got. Work is progressing. But the focus right now is for ELI. What am I saying? That's ELI Falls Fire Zamani, which is in September. And we're looking at pushing MI's album around November. We need to also space it out. And that makes sure that he's worn down with the show. We're working on some collaborations as well. Some strategic collaboration. Yeah, we saw
Iceprince in the studio with Wale.
Yeah. Was that Iceprince?
Come on, man.
Well, you guys will hear very soon. French Montana as well. MI is working on this collaboration. I can't say right now, but it's going to be huge as well. Huge, quite huge. So there's a lot going on. Like I said, I don't want to talk too much. It's Chocolate Factory 78, and I don't want to say too much. But you'll hear it first here, definitely.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.